Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast. Presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, my guest is Jake Montgomery, the owner and driver of the one and only Eagle. How you doing today, Jake?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm so honored to get the chance to talk to you. I've been watching you for a real long time, and I love that you're still doing it. And probably one of the very, very, very few OGs now that's out there making hits and going to competitions.
Yeah, we're still kicking it. We're still rocking it. Getting a little older, but it's still pushing.
Heck yeah. So, Jake, you've had this car for a very, very long time. What is the current setup on it?
Current setup on it is just it's a long rod, 2-liter, 156 millimeter rod. Right now the current motor is actually got parts in it that we're not normally used to running. I put this motor together last Thanksgiving in 2021. And back then, we couldn't get parts.
Yeah.
The GRP rods that we're trying to get, they were 22 weeks out. Pistons were 4 to 5 months out. After the pandemic, everything was really, really hard to get. So I just got what I got and ended up with some off-the-shelf JE pistons. And luckily, I was able to obtain some 156 millimeter R&R solid beam rods, and the motor's it's kind of wild because it's parts that I normally am not used to running, because our normal combination is GRP Aries pistons, and we've always ran that combination for many years, and so now we're on a completely different combination. And this motor that I pretty much just threw together just to get by. I put it together in, like I said, last Thanksgiving in 2021, and this entire season I haven't had to even pull the head off.
Wow.
It has made it throughout the entire season. We probably put 65 passes on it this year alone. The only thing I've done is cut the filter open to check for shavings or anything like that, and every time I cut the filter open, no shavings, no point of pulling the pan or anything like that. So, but our head gasket program that I've worked on for many years is actually working now. So pretty stoked about that.
Heck yeah. And it should be noted that you got a personal best this year.
Yes. Funny story about that. So that was unintentional. This year I tried something different with the whole boost control setup. I've seen a lot of the Honda guys, the big sport front wheel drive guys, ex front wheel drive guys. A lot of people are starting to use 2 solenoids, one solenoid to control the side port and one solenoid to control the top port. Now, if you got an ECU, you could control that by 2 different tables. So went out there, and it was like 40 degrees in the morning, 39, 40 degrees. It was cold as hell. And I knew I was going to have to use brake cleaner or something to fire up the car. It's on a mechanical fuel pump. I shot it with some brake clean. It fired up, blah, blah, blah. Well, did I know that brake clean, and I sprayed the brake clean through the turbo, the inlet of the turbo. It's just the easiest way to do it. I had no idea that brake clean would actually clog a Mac solenoid. Well, the side port solenoid clogged on me. So you can see where this is going. If you have no pressure to the side port and you got all the pressure to the top port, what happens? So I staged the car, just an A to B tune-up. I didn't have any nitrous in it, other than to stall, and nitrous shuts off at 1.3 seconds into the run, so before the 1-2 shift. Anyway, I launched the car. The car took off. It shifted a second. The car pinned me to the seat harder than I've ever felt the car. And I saw the warning coming up on the dash, but it was like Fast and Furious moment. I didn't care.
Right.
I was like, this car is rolling right now. I am not lifting. I've never felt a car like this. It felt clean, and it went through the trap. I think it came pretty damn close to 11,000 RPM. To be exact, it was about 10,700 RPM through the trap.
Holy cow.
So it was screaming its guts out. And on FuelTech ECUs, especially like the FT500, it's got a peak hold on the dash display. And I knew it was an overboost warning, which I always had that set low. I always kept forgetting to reset that. Anyway, I looked down at the peak hold, and it said 87.7 pounds of boost. And I have the in-car video of it, and I'm talking to myself on the return road, like, there's no way that it just hit that much boost. There's no way. It's impossible. I get back to the pit. I pull the data. Sure enough, it was 87.7, but it was flatline. I'm like, why? That looks a little weird. And then it dawned on me. Well, the FuelTech's got an onboard 7-bar map sensor. Well, 7-bar map sensor reads 87.7 pounds of boost. So it completely maxed out the map sensor, so I have no idea where the boost went.
Wow.
Started thinking about it, like, well, I can kind of judge where the boost kind of went by looking at fuel pressure. I have a 0 to 200 psi fuel pressure sensor. I brought up the fuel pressure channel on the log, and it was maxed out at 200 psi. So I have no idea where the boost went. It could have been 89, 90 pounds of boost. I have no idea. But to do that at elevation, we're about 3,000 feet elevation. The DA was around, DA was pretty decent. It was about 3,800 feet DA. But to do that on all boost with no nitrous and to do it at my local track, I was pretty ecstatic about that.
Yeah.
The car held up. The only thing I was mainly concerned about is obviously the precision turbo, because you start those turbos, especially the next gen stuff, this next gen 8085, it's unbelievable how much boost this thing could actually create. Being an 80 millimeter turbo, I would never expect this turbo to be able to make that kind of boost, but it did. I at the beginning of the year, I spit apart an 83, 85, but I did have 2 seasons on that turbo, and that thing never saw anything less than 65 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, that one lasted me quite a while, but it did make a mess. It spit all the fin, when it broke the shaft, all the fins and everything went into the intercooler and just made a mess.
Man.
But so I was a little concerned about the turbo if I overspun it or not. And apparently I didn't. The turbo's fine. We just got back from Las Vegas from Import Face-Off, and we ended up winning down there. And it took every bit of it, down there. I mean, we turned it down. I definitely turned everything back down. When we went to Vegas, the track was not wanting to hold much more power than what I was throwing at it. So had to turn it down and just go rounds and get that W. So
that's what you gotta do sometimes.
Oh yeah, but as far as like the current setup, again, it's a long rod 2-liter precision 83, 85 next gen. It's on a FuelTech FT500 ECU 8 FIC 2150s mechanical fuel pump that. I think it's at 118 psi base fuel pressure, so we're definitely using up a lot of fuel. 3-speed auto with pretty much every billet part that you could possibly imagine in it. All of Kigley's parts that he offers for the DSM auto is in the transmission. All the parts that Jeff Bush offers, it's all in the transmission. Everything's in there. The only thing that we're missing, and all of us DSM guys are missing, is planetaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but we just replace them as we go, when they are available, when we can find them. So, other than that, yeah, that's pretty much the rundown of the combination. I mean, the car is still pretty heavy at 2,800 pounds, so it's not heavy, it's not light,
right.
But comparable to other guys, it is pretty heavy.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Jake, what was it so many years ago that drew you to the 1G platform?
Well, that goes back to when I was in Little League Baseball. I was 12 years old and 12, 13 years old, around there. I think it was. However old I was back in 1990. So that was quite a while ago, quite some time ago. My assistant coach bought a brand new Eagle Talon, and he showed up to practice one day in it, and he gave us all rides. And from there on out, I just fell in love with the car.
Hell yeah.
When I turned 16, got my driver's license, and by age 17, 18, I purchased my first DSM, which was a 1994 Eagle Talon non-turbo.
Okay.
It was a front-wheel drive car, and it was the electric blue. Beautiful car. Back then in 94, that thing's pretty pristine. Anyway, I had that car for a little bit. I was probably one of the only ones at the time that went to a junkyard and found a turbo model car that was totaled. I yanked off the factory turbo setup off of it, the oil pan, the turbo, the manifold, yada, yada, yada. And I literally threw it on a non-turbo combination. I mean, this is back when I didn't know better.
Right.
I was just getting started.
Yeah.
So I just threw all the stuff on the car and just ran it. 10 pounds of boost, the thing went 1390s in front-wheel drive form on street tires. I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. And obviously, over time, back then we didn't really have anything to tune with. Super AFCs were just starting to come out, and tuned on a Super AFC and ended up breaking all the ring lands out of the damn thing. But that was a pretty fun car. And then I picked up another one, another front-wheel drive that ended up being a TSI. And I ran that. I campaigned that for a little while, and obviously I got sick and tired of the front-wheel drive stuff. So I found my current car back in 2002. When I found it, it was a 1992 Eagle Talon. One of my buddies had it, and he didn't know any better. He thought it had a bad rod bearing in it because it was clacking and making some clattering noises.
Yeah.
So I bought it from him for $1,500.
Oh, wow.
And it was in pretty good shape. It was silver back then. And I brought it back home. And before I pulled the motor out, I just wanted to dig around and see if I could find something else wrong with it instead of just being a rod bearing.
Yeah.
Pulled the time cover off and realized that it had a broken balance shaft belt, and that balance shaft belt was in there flapping around against the timing belt. And that was the noise. So fixed that, fired it up, car ran great.
Wow.
So I got a pretty killer deal on that deal. And from there on out, it just snowballed into what it is today.
Definitely got your money's worth.
Yeah. I mean, I think over the years, my career winnings, from winning all these races, I might have made back more than half of what I put into it over the years. I probably could have damn near bought a house by now. Nobody ever said that drag racers were very smart.
I guess that must be true for all of us, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a bad drug, but, once you get sucked into it, it's kind of hard to get out of it.
For sure.
I mean, what else would we be doing, honestly?
So, Jake, way back when you picked this car up and replaced that balance shaft belt, did you have any goals in mind after running that 13.9 in the front-wheel drive?
And that goes back to, like today, people always seem to think that it's taken this many years to go sevens or whatnot. The thing is, the truth is, back then, we weren't even thinking about going sevens. We were thinking about going 11s, and then 10s, and then 9s, and 8s. It's just always been a progression. You reach a goal, and then you set your next goal. So back then, I was wanting to run 10s, and that came pretty easily. I put together a pretty simple combination, just a basic motor build, Eagle rods, and stuff like that. Nothing too crazy, and then had the FP 3065 turbo on it, and I wanted 10s out of it. I went out to the track, and it went 1080 at 134 mile an hour.
Okay.
Right on the first hit.
Wow.
With that combination. So I was like, okay, well, I achieved that. So I got a hold of Robert over at Force Performance, and Robert set me up with the 3575. And the next goal was obviously to break into the nines.
Yeah.
Well, after I think 4 or 5 passes on that turbo, it went 998 at 142 mile an hour with that turbo. And this is all back when it was still street driven. I drove it to the track. I didn't even own a trailer back then. So it was street driven. This was done on race gas, because back then we weren't really getting into the ethanol stuff in the E85, and E85 didn't come until later. And we were just learning the new, version 1 AEM back then, 2003, 2004. That's about where AEM released their ECU for the DSM, and I was one of the first ones to run it.
Oh, wow.
So it took a little bit, between fighting all the stupid little issues that the AEM had, with the software glitches, obviously hardware problems and stuff like that. We had to fight through coil drivers burning up, just stupid crap, but we fought through all that. And from there, like I said, it just snowballed from there, and car just kept getting faster and faster and faster, and it's never ending.
Yeah,
it really is. So
some people say a race car is not supposed to be.
What's that?
Some people say a race car is always never ending.
No, they never are. They're never ending. There's always something that you can progress on or improve on. As a driver, you could improve on yourself, and it is honestly endless, of what you could do with these combinations. And it gets to the point where you start getting bored with it, so you just start changing things up just to test stuff,
So, Jake, over all these years, you must have had hundreds and hundreds of different setups and combinations on this car. Were there any that you would say stand out as your favorite?
Man, I could honestly say back in 2008, that was probably the best time that I had racing.
Yeah.
Because back then, traveling and racing with a points championship on the line, something that, you're racing for something that actually mattered, rather than just going out and putting a number up on the board and becoming instant E-famous,
Right.
So back then, that was probably the best time I've had with the car. I mean, we struggled a lot with it, but we always came through and made everything work. But that combination was, honestly, it was a PPG dog box from Shep Racing. I had just a cast wheel 42R turbo on it. It was actually a 4202 journal bearing turbo. Just a low compression motor and a little bit of nitrous on VP import race fuel. And back in 2008, it was running 860s at 166, 167 mile an hour. And we went clear back east. We're clear over here on the West Coast. We went clear back east, traveled with Battle of the Imports, and we traveled with Battle of the Imports all on the West Coast, and ended up, I think, third overall on the points championship on that deal. So that was probably the best time I've ever had with the car. I don't think it was mainly because of the combination. I think it was just mainly because the environment.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as traveling around with Battle of the Imports and, chasing this point series and chasing a position in the point series, that was the most exciting part. I mean, we don't really have much of that today.
Yeah.
It's just individual races that we go to anymore.
Right.
So, but, I can say, I mean, as far as the best combination that I've enjoyed is the current combination that's actually in the car right now.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's actually pretty damn reliable. Like I said, this year we put that motor in, or I say we, I'm just talking about me and my wife. So it's mainly just me. So I put that motor in, like I said, last Thanksgiving in 2021, and I haven't had to do anything with the motor all year other than put plugs and oil in it and the transmission. I went pretty much all season on it up until just a couple months ago when I pulled it out to check the planetaries.
Mm-hmm.
And the planetaries were starting to see some decent heat to them, so I went ahead and put a planetary in it. But everything else in the transmission looked good. So didn't have any drivetrain failure other than the very beginning of this year. Back in January, we went to Bakersfield, and for whatever reason, the outer CV cage around the axle shaft cracked and broke and stripped the spline.
Huh.
I mean, other than that, that was the only drivetrain failure that we had all season. So the transmission, we have Magnus Motorsports billet T-case gears and the transfer case right now, and that's been holding up for 3 seasons now. I haven't had a problem with that. Transmission, like I said, lived all season long. The motor lived all season long. Head gasket lasted all season long. So this has probably been the most reliable combination I've had yet. But a lot of it, is just me getting smarter about the tune-up, me getting smarter about, knowing when to use the power and not use the power.
Yeah.
Because honestly, let's face it, that car's not going to be on kill every single pass.
Right.
That would just be dumb of me. Because then at that point, all I'm doing is number chasing, which, everybody knows I'm not a number chaser. I go out there and go for win lights and try to win races.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we did pretty well this year. We didn't do as much racing this year as we have in previous years just because of, the inflation and gas prices and just traveling costs have just been through the roof. So it's been kind of rough this year.
So, Jake, you think looking back all those years, you would still, if you could go back, you would still do this build all over the same way?
There's so many different ways you could slice it. I mean, had I known the combination that I have in the car now back then,
yeah,
like say back in 2008, I think I'd be way further than I am now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be way further than I ever have been, but it's always a learning experience. I'm always learning new things every day. Everybody is.
Right.
I mean, there's not a single person on this planet that will tell you, I know absolutely everything. You're always learning something, and the car is always teaching you something. Every race you go to, the car is always constantly going to teach you something.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, I mean, it's just you got to just progress and keep up with things, and just the data in the car it'll talk to you every time that you go down the track. It'll tell you what it wants and what it doesn't want, what it likes, what it doesn't like.
Yeah.
I mean, is it, sometimes putting on kill, is it worth the extra 1/10 of a second when you could just leave it alone and go rounds and put a wind light on? I think I've gotten a lot smarter over the years about that, because I think what wore me out back in 2008, because everybody knows, in the end of 2008, I parted out my car and I took a break from the car for a little while.
Yeah.
I think what wore me out back then is I was letting my ego get to me, and I was trying to chase a stupid number.
Mm.
And instead of trying to put wind lights on, I was trying to chase a number, and I was breaking the car a lot. I mean, back then we didn't have all the technology that we have today. So we pushed the car extremely hard with, stock parts, stock T cases and crap like that. So we just continuously kept breaking the car, and it wore me out. It wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people that leave the sport, that's why they leave the sport, because they get tired of the car breaking.
Right.
But I've learned over the last few years that, just turning it down and making it go rounds, you'll enjoy the car a lot more rather than trying to put a damn number up.
Yep.
And you could actually enjoy the car more and more. And that's what I've been doing for the past few years, and that's what's been working for me, and I've won a lot of races that way. Has a car gone record-breaking fast? No, absolutely not. Has it ran some decent numbers? Absolutely it has.
For sure.
But You know, like I said, I'm more concerned when I go out to a race. I'm more concerned on putting those wind lights on rather than, you know, trying to put up a number and showboat, you know, or get that instant 3 days worth of fame on Facebook or something. You know, and you do something cool and then you post it on Facebook, and then you're famous for like 3 days. Everybody sees it, and after 3 days, nobody gives a crap anymore, right? So that's your instant 3 days of fame. You know, it's not really worth doing all that. So
this episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Boosted Fabrication. They create custom parts for most Mitsubishi vehicles, parts stronger and lighter than OEM, such as cross members, engine mounts, bumper supports, and many others, including custom parts by request. Boosted Fabrication builds all parts to order using only high-quality materials, bonded together with expert precision, and finished to not only last, but to look good doing it. Check out all the products they have to offer at boostedfabrication.com. Jake, with that being said, though, why do you keep pushing this car?
I could honestly say my entire life I have been raised around race cars.
Yeah.
My father raced cars. My uncle raced back in the day. That's pretty much all I've done since I was a teenager. It's pretty much all I know, you know. So, I mean, if I quit today, what am I going to... I'm 46 today. So, if I quit today, what would I be doing? You know, I mean, honestly, I'd go buy a boat.
Right.
You know, I mean, go fishing. I mean, fishing's great, don't get me wrong. But, you know, it's definitely a stress reliever, but it's not something that excites me.
Right.
You know, but... Again, like what would I be doing? I just keep pushing myself, and I keep setting goals for myself. If I have a goal set, that's what keeps me going. If I don't have a goal set, then why am I even doing this?
Right. Yeah.
You know, you can't set goals to please other people. You have to set goals for yourself to keep yourself motivated. Because if you're trying to go out and impress people all the time, you're not going to have a fun time.
Right.
You're just not.
100%.
So, like, my goal right now is 60 career wins. I'm at 56 career wins just after Las Vegas a few weeks ago. I won that one, and that put me at 56 career wins my whole racing career.
Wow.
So, at 60 career wins, what will I do? I don't know. Go for 65?
Right. Shoot for 65?
You know? I mean, if my body will still allow me to do it, then great, you know, because as everybody knows, you know, I don't have a team. I don't have any sponsors. I do have Kigley Racing. They help out tremendously. I can't thank Kigley and, you know, Kevin and Aaron. They've been phenomenal and fantastic in the help. You know, but other than them, you know, and Jam Fabrications, they help out, you know, with the intake manifold that I got on the car. I'm a one-man army. I'm a one-man show. I built this car with my own two hands, you know. Yeah. I mean, you know, except for the welding portion of it. I mean, some of the welding I've done, like half of the manifold I welded, the other half my buddy did. But everything else, you know, I built my car with my own two hands out of my own garage.
Wow.
You know, so nobody's done anything. I build my own transmissions. I build my own motors. You know, I tune my own car. I trailer my own car. I do the in-between round maintenance on my own car. You know, I do it all. So as I'm progressively getting older and older, it's starting to wear on me more and more. You know, I can't move like I used to, like when I was 20. You know, so some of these races get pretty exhausting, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
But I am still pushing now. Like I said, my current goal right now is not to put up a number. You know, if a number is going to happen, it'll happen.
Yeah.
I don't expect it, because the time that you expect it and the time that you keep pushing for it is where you will burn yourself out. And I learned that. And I've learned not to do that. rather than trying to push for a number, I'm pushing for personal set goals as far as how many wins I could get.
Yeah.
And I've been enjoying the sport a lot more.
Heck yeah.
So like I said, 60 career wins. That is my goal right now. I'm at 56 career wins right now. So I got 4 more to go. But again, I really don't see myself stopping there.
Right.
The only thing that'll stop me from going any further is just age. Just being burned out and not being able to do it anymore.
So, Jake, would you say that your 2023 goal is just to add to that number?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, we won 2. I went to 3 events this year, 3 out-of-state event this year. 2 of them, which were import face-off, and I won both of those. And then 1 small tire shootout that I did in Washington, and I came up short on that one. We didn't do a lot of racing this year. We just mainly did some local test and tune stuff, just played around with the car mainly, and a couple of local events, and then a couple of the import face-off events. But this 2023, if gas prices are looking good and hotel prices aren't skyrocketed like they were this year, then we'll be definitely hitting up quite a bit more races this upcoming year.
Do you know what events for sure that you're going to hit in 2023? People can come out and see you in action?
The first one for 2023, we are planning in March, import face-off in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So that'll be our first one. And then after that, it'll be Kent, Washington, which is in Seattle. And then import face-off in Woodburn, Oregon following that.
Okay.
So try to hit up all the West Coast import face-offs, or the majority of them anyway.
Right. So, Jake, you're mostly known for the Evil Eagle, but like you said, you've had some other DSMs here and there. Are there any Mitsubishis that you've had over the years that you really enjoyed?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people knew that I owned a 2003 Evo, there for a little bit after I parted the Talon out. Excuse me. After I parted the Talon out, let's see, it was back in 2008. I went ahead and used that money and purchased a 2003 Evo.
Yep.
That ended up being 100% street car, full weight, full interior with an 8-point roll cage that we put in it, and it was a 10-point, it was an 850 cage, and just had a basic run of the mill 2.3 stroker. Nothing crazy. It had Eagle rods, stock 100 millimeter crank. And what was it? Eagle rods and JE pistons, stock head, just had some Kelfer 272 cams and a HTA 3586R. And that car ran 980s at 146 mile an hour like clockwork.
Wow.
At almost 3,400 pounds. I mean, the car still... It had a DVD player with a TV and everything. So played around with that for quite a while, but shortly, after running the car for a couple years, I realized, man, this car is not great for drag racing at this weight. So it just loved eating clutches left and right. And I ended up selling that car and ended up gathering parts up slowly to put the Evil Eagle back together. And then 2013 is when I put the Talon back together and came back out. But we came back out with it being auto this go around.
Yeah.
With all the success that I kept seeing everybody having with the auto, I figured I'd give it a shot. I know a lot of people disagreed with it. They didn't, because they've always known my car for being a dog box car, but I wanted to try something new, and quite honestly, with the auto, it's been way more reliable, a lot more consistent.
Yeah.
Generally quicker to the 8th mile when conditions are correct. But I'm not gonna lie, I do miss rolling gears.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't?
Right.
I mean, are you a real car enthusiast if you don't miss rolling gears?
It's very true. So, Jake, you've gained an impossible to measure amount of experience over all these years. If someone is just starting out, building building a 1G, and they want to work their way up the list, what advice would you give them for their build so that they don't kind of run into the same things or make some of the same mistakes you might have made over the years?
It's funny that you asked that because I've always been a one, do more with less. And I've always been that way. I mean, my car, it's not $1 million car. It doesn't have all the fancy crap in it. It doesn't have the billet block, it doesn't have all that stuff.
Right.
It's not a big-time sponsored car or shop car. It's literally a car that's built out of a toolbox that's no bigger than, just a normal carry-around toolbox out of my own garage.
Right.
But my best advice is go with what works. Don't believe the hype. There's a lot of things that you don't need to do. If you just stick with a lot of the basics, majority of longevity is always going to be in the tune-up. Almost always. You could take a billet block, you could take the best parts in the world, throw it in a motor, and you could still go out and blow the living hell out of that thing.
Yeah, for sure.
If the tune-up is not there. So, I've proven, with my combination, like I said, it doesn't really have high-dollar parts. On my car, it's all off-the-shelf stuff. There's nothing spectacular about my combination. It's really basic stuff that anybody and everybody can just buy off the shelf. I mean, some of the stuff I buy from Summit Racing. So, but my advice is get your feet wet. Don't go overboard right away.
Right.
Do a basic combination. Go out, get your feet wet, enjoy the car. Because I don't know how many times I see people, they go all in right away and they buy all these parts, and then the car just turns into what we call a flower pot. Because it just sits there and grows weeds.
Yeah.
It never gets finished, or they lose time or
do a part
effort, or they just want to part it out. I don't know how many times I see that happen. If you go out and race, get your feet wet. Just do a basic combination. Go out there, win some races, have some fun. Progress into making the car better. You don't need to do it all at once.
Right.
You really don't. I mean, if you go out to the track and run 12, so what? You're running your car. What's better, running the car or the car sitting in your garage collecting dust?
That's very true.
So that's how I've always done it with my cars. Is I've always started out low, and I've just progressed into it and just made the car better and better and better and better. Rather than doing it all at one shot, sometimes that just kills motivation, and by the time you're done with it, you realize how much time and money you spent into it for a car that doesn't even run.
Right.
So that's no fun.
Yeah.
Right? Definitely.
So, Jake, I think if we're being honest, I think the 60 wins goal isn't going to be a long-term one. Would you say that there's any long-term goal that you have with this car, or is the long-term goal, like you said earlier, just to keep enjoying it?
I think the long-term goal right now is just to keep enjoying it, because there's no record that I really would want to go after. I've never been a record chaser. In fact, I don't really hold any records, but I really don't care about records. To be quite honest with you, my bank account can't afford to go after records. I'm kind of baller on a budget here, because I'm doing this all on my own dime. I don't have sponsorships and whatnot, that just give me all sorts of money and parts and turbos and stuff like that. I mean, hell, the turbos are costing way more than what the motor actually costs. You know, I could build 2 motors for the cost of 1 precision turbo. It's gotten that ridiculous. But like I said, I think a lot of it is just going out and enjoying the sport and putting wind lights on and just racing. Just being out there and just racing.
Yeah.
Like I said, most people that try to go after, records, they end up burning themselves out pretty quick. Because let's face it, chasing a record, you're going to break a lot of shit. Excuse my language, but you are definitely going to break a lot of shit going after records. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, let's think about, back when the GTRs, when all the GTR guys were going after sixes. I could tell you, I have a handful of friends that were in that chase of sixes in the GTR world, and when the 6-second pass finally happened, all the other guys, they were relieved. They weren't bummed that they didn't get it. They were relieved that was over. Because some of those cars, I know a couple of the cars, they had $1 million budget per year to go after that number. And they used that budget up.
Jeez.
It's just, it gets expensive extremely quick. So, again, like I said, the record stuff, it's cool. It's really cool to watch and see, but if you don't have the backing for it, it's not so much fun.
Yeah.
I can tell you that right now.
Well, Jake, I don't even know if I should ask you this question after after you just said that, but you've seen the top 10 of the 1Gs come and go, and a lot of people make up.
I don't even know where I'm sitting. Where am I sitting?
You're number 6 right now.
Oh, am I?
But you're
okay.
5 thousandths off of number 5.
Oh, yeah, and that would be Mr. Holland.
Yes, it would.
Yeah. No comment on that guy.
Yeah, we won't go there.
No.
But you've seen everybody from Shepard. All of the time that you've been racing, you've seen Shepard, Bush, Busher have number 1, and it's gone all around. So, what do you foresee as the future of the top 10 list looking like? I mean, we've seen where it was mostly manuals, and now it's almost completely autos. We've seen 70 millimeters. Now we're seeing 80 millimeters. What kind of things do you foresee in the future that the 1G list is going to look like?
Man, that's a tough one. I can tell you, when Aaron Gregory comes back out in 2023, he's probably going to set the world on fire. He's got the itch to go for the sixes again. I know that he's talked about it, but I think he's going to really, really wake a lot of people up with this new combination that he's going to put together.
Yeah.
So that'll be really cool to see.
For sure.
Devin from Boost and Performance, we all know that guy. He's an animal, at what he does. He's very, very smart with the tuning aspect of everything. It was really cool to see him go into the sixes this year finally.
Yep.
I know that has to be a huge relief off his back. He's happy, he's not sitting up at night thinking to himself what he could do, to get that little extra, but he finally broke into the sixes, and I think that is a big relief on his side. I don't foresee him slowing down either. I know he wants to get there. If I know Devin doesn't want to just go out there and run an occasional 6. He's going to want to run a 6-second pass every pass.
Yeah.
He's going to want to do it over and over and over again. And same with Aaron. Aaron loves racing. Aaron, I know he'll want to get into the sixes, and I have no doubt that he will. As far as like myself, I honestly don't see my car going much quicker than 750, honestly. That's really my end goal with the car as far as numbers go.
Yeah.
If we're actually putting a number out there, my end goal is just 750s, honestly. The car needs to lose a ton of weight. The car's 2,800 pounds. It's heavy, comparable to like Aaron's car or somebody else, or his car or whatnot. I don't even know what Devin Carr's weighs right now. I know it's around 2,500. I think Aaron's is around 24 or 2,500 as well. But at this point, to get more weight, everybody always says, "Oh, you just get weight out of the car. Get weight out of the car." Well, I don't think people understand how hard it is to get 400 or 500 pounds out of the car.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of weight, and at that point, it's going to cost a lot of money. We're talking $10,000+ just to get the kind of weight out of the car. I mean, let's think about this here. I mean, we got wheels. Okay, I like I said, I've always done more with less. I'm on $350 set of Jags wheels. Woohoo! They're heavy. They're extremely heavy. My car is still on bone stock 1G single piston caliper brakes.
Man.
Bone stock with AutoZone rotors on it that are heavy as hell.
Wow.
It's got stock front and rear subframes in the car. So we got $1,500 in brakes. We got $1,500 in a rear subframe, $1,500 into a front subframe. Then we got, let's face it, $4,000 in the wheels if you want really lightweight, beadlock style wheels like Black's or anything like that. You're gonna spend about $4,000 in wheels.
Yeah.
And then carbon fiber doors. There's another, $1,000 to $1,300 or however much Sergio's selling those carbon fiber doors now. And then just other stuff like titanium parts, titanium bolts, stuff like that. We're talking, combine all of that up, and it's going to be over $10,000 to get that kind of weight out of the car.
For sure, yeah.
And that to me, it just, every time I look at all of those parts and look at how much it always costs on how much to do all that, I always puke a little bit in my mouth.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'd rather just keep it the way it is and go enjoy it. Because it's like, man, do I really want to put that much money into it just to lose 400 or 500 pounds out of the car?
Right.
Of course, it's going to make the car faster, but it's going to make the car a little bit more challenging to get down the track.
Yep.
Because lighter cars, that always comes with its own challenges on its own.
So,
yeah.
Jake, where can people find and follow you and the Evil Eagle on social media?
Facebook, obviously, under my name, Jake Montgomery. On Instagram, it's evil.eagle. Those pretty much are the only two social media outlets that I have.
Okay.
So,
and finally, Jake, I always give people an opportunity to give a thanks or a shout out to anybody who's helped them get where they are, help them get their car where it is. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, absolutely. Number one and foremost is Kigley Racing. I mean, I can't thank Kevin and his wife Erin more. I have no words, honestly, because they have done so well over the years. They've done so well for the community. They just continuously bring out new products, and they continuously support the DSM community by continuing selling parts for our cars. And
Definitely.
they've helped me out. They've helped me out so tremendously this last, God, I don't know how many years. I've lost count. I mean, obviously, I'm going on almost 3 decades of racing, and I've dealt with Kevin for all the way back to 2008, 2007. I've dealt with them for quite some time. They've helped me out greatly. Of course, JM Fabrications, I know Jim. He's definitely kind of slowed down on stuff, but he's still kicking. He's still punching out products for DSMs, intake manifolds, billet intake manifolds and whatnot. Can't thank him enough for the intake manifolds that he's built over the years. And my wife, pretty much my wife, for putting up with my craziness with all this racing and all this shit, I mean, most women, they would just dart the other direction, but she's always there supporting me, and you could always see her at every event that I go to. She's right there.
Heck
so
yeah. Love to hear that.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful for that. I mean, this is kind of a, husband and wife kind of thing that we've been doing for many years. So, I mean, she's my biggest fan. I can tell you that.
Heck yeah. Love that. Well, Jake, again, it's been an absolute honor to get you on here. I'm so glad that people are going to get to hear your story again.
Hey, no problem, man. I mean, if we had more time, the stories are endless. I can tell you that. So
we'll definitely we'll have to do a follow-up.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm down for that.
All right. Well, again, Jake, thanks a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at some events this year.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.